Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jolene. I'm the head of trends and tours at WindowsWear. Welcome to our Monday edition of WindowsWear Live. Um, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of our retail news stories that are going on this past week and these past couple weeks. As you know, the news changes hourly, daily, weekly. So let's take a look at some exciting things that are happening in the retail world. And as always, please feel free to leave a question or a comment on any of our social media platforms, which are currently streaming on. That is Instagram Live, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and Zoom. All right, let's start off with Balmain, which is having a store opening, their New York store, which pays homage to the past and goes into what they think the future of Balmain will hold. So Balmain has opened their uptown New York City store at 650 Madison Avenue. If that address sounds familiar, it's actually right where Barney's used to be. And right now, that opening is taking on this greater and very different kind of resonance. For one thing, Balmain, again, sits in the shadow of the shuttered Barney's New York. And for another, COVID is still very present in New York City. Opening Balmain, New York at this precise moment of time feels like an optimistic volley, in our increasingly unpredictable future in retail. So is it a gamble? Absolutely. Will it pay off for Balmain? More than likely. And let's all remind ourselves that as Paris was emerging from their very strict lockdown, right, Balmain presented their resort collection by sailing up the Seine to give bystanders this no holds barred fashion show. So it was very innovative for them, and it was a way to say we're back. And this for Balmain is another way to say that they're back. This store features a gallery space that's visible from the outside, and it highlights the work of artists and the house's collaborations before opening up into several smaller rooms inside the store that are dedicated to different aspects of the Balmain universe. The decor, which was pitched, was somewhere in between this idea of the gilded Paris salon era and this kind of upfront, glossy grittiness that New York City has always done so well. Let's move on down. Um, and what did they want the store to sort of look and feel like? The most important thing was this shared determination to bring Balmain's vision of Paris to each and every part of the world in which they open a new flagship, right? So for New York City, they wanted to play with the idea of the Parisian experience, making each part of the store channel a classic Parisian townhouse, whether it was a garden, the library, the boudoir, whatever it was. But for the Madison Avenue address, they really wanted to be sure to create a space that fit into the unique spirit of Manhattan and New York City specifically. So they adapted this Balmain prototype in order to reference the unique ambiance of New York City. New York streets, our galleries, our incredible loft spaces, right? And yes, they did include many of the furnishings that people would see at their flagships worldwide and recognize with their Parisian influences. They remain intact, but they've also added this tougher, urban attitude to the New York space, which really sets the New York flagship apart. And that's exposing workings that we might have covered up elsewhere or things that were a little more gritty, right? They're putting this in the out in the open focus, and it's all very cool. It's all black exposition space, which is inspired by amazing art galleries that you can find in Chelsea, that you can find in Soho and New York City neighborhoods, and that the creative director Olivier loves so much, right? They also have pulled from their archives and from their history. So Pierre Balmain, when he founded his brand, right, used this special monogram for the Balmain boutique decors decades ago. And we're starting to see this resurgence and this honor to the vintage monogram being brought back. And there's something very powerful about graphic monograms. The house archives show how Pierre Balmain has been using this idea of the PB monogram since the 1960s. And while preparing for this new Madison Avenue store, Balmain started exploring the idea of, their first permanent American address in New York City. And this space has this special carpet that Pierre Balmain designed, relying on an intertwining P and B for Pierre and Balmain. You can see that here on the bags, on the product. And then creative director Olivier Rousteing adapted those monogram designs in order to use them on several of the new men's and women's collections, accessories, ready to wear, and couture designs that we saw coming from them this season. So it's a mix of old and new, and looking to the past and looking to your brand archives to inform a new collection is something that a lot of big luxury houses are currently doing, right? Taking a step back and sort of reprioritizing and looking at the idea of looking inward for inspiration as opposed to outside at outside elements for inspiration. So this is very smart for Balmain. Moving on. So over at Hypebeast, we're having something a little different. So you may have heard of this term Hypebeast, right? Not only as a digital platform, but also as a verb itself. And it really describes this trendsetter with the most coveted drops in streetwear, right? So originally this started as a sneaker blog in his college days. Kevin Ma, who is the CEO of Hypebeast, really has one of the most influential lifestyle media groups when it comes to this platform. And apart from its digital media arm, right, the group is also this large creative agency and has their own retail brand, which is called HBX. HBX offers men's contemporary fashion and streetwear both online and offline. And after several partnered pop ups, e commerce site HBX has finally set up their own shop in Hong Kong. So let's take a look at what that looks like as a physical presence. So Hypebeast became this major source for millennial sneakerheads, predominantly in the United States, and they're now growing hugely and very, very quickly in the Asian Pacific region as well. And as a strong market leader for lifestyle and fashion curated content, HBX was created to further bring the latest emerging trends to their readers in hopes of becoming a really big leading shopping destination. With over 200 brands from highly coveted designers and exclusive products of the season, the reception of their curations has driven their brand to build its presence outside of a user's screen into tangible experiences. So we're seeing this more often. These Instagram brands, particularly brands that dominate in the arena of social media, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, they're starting to create these presences outside of, the social media user experience into tangible experiences, into brick and mortar. The king of this, I think, for me is Glossier, right? Who emerged from a blog to an Instagram brand to a billion-dollar thriving beauty brand in global locations. HBX opened their first ever permanent space right in the heart of Hong Kong Landmark, which is a luxury mall catered for the city's socialites. And this 167 square meter space has 4 distinct areas that are divided by modular partitions to set themes. So here we can see that beautiful HBX logo. It's very clean, it's very young, it's very millennial. They've stripped away all of the unnecessary design to give the impression of an empty museum of curated content. And this is so that the space is universally applicable to any brand. So this is a very smart design move for them. The recent revamp and expansion is inspired by the concept of a corporate lobby. And while that may not sound very sexy, right? They've again created these zones to display curations more effectively, and such as a dedicated sneaker wall, right, which is great for visual impact. You can see that sneaker wall up on the right side of the store and on the left side of this image. And consumers are greeted instantly with these digital tablets at the entrance, which allows them to browse through new arrivals before they even step into the main space where luxury meets sort of streetwear and street fashion. Consumers can also try on products in store from their online purchases as part of their omni-channel experience. And knowing most of its consumers are influenced by its editorial platforms, Hypebeast has designed the HBX store as a storytelling space by creating different installations and experiences in store that cannot be replicated digitally. The biggest of which is Hype Beans, which is their cafe. So the cafe scene, Hype Beans is the group's first foray into the food and beverage industry, into hospitality. And this is very unique and smart because people love hanging out in coffee shops. They can work there, they can meet up there with friends or have meetings. You really want it to create your own version of a communal space in a community. And collaborating with world-class barista Hiroshi Sadawa, who also shares a passion for fashion and culinary experiences and community, Hype Beans was created for like-minded individuals, right, to gather and nurture creative collaborations, which embodies the spirit of the Hype Beast community itself. The fashion industry is also seeing this new wave of luxury houses and luxury brands opening their first cafes and sort of dipping their toes in the hospitality world. We spoke about this a couple of months ago when we talked about the marriage of hospitality and luxury brands, right? Great examples are the Louis Vuitton La Cafe V in Osaka, the Emporio Armani Cafe in India, right? More often than not, brands are wanting to create different touch points to keep people in a space and keeping them engaged. And cafes enable that, right? They enable brands to expand their physical presence, but they also provide a full range of sensory experiences, right? Extending from shopping to the taste and smell of coffee. And millennials gravitate towards these experiences, especially those that are unique to other markets, and really place a really high premium on this kind of novelty. However, with a market that's saturated with coffee stores, particularly like the sort of Instagram channels, right? Like Instagrammable coffee shops, Hype Beans is another trending cafe that still has a lot to compete with a very big growing market. And for HBX and Hype Beast and Hype Beans, their plan to differentiate themselves, they want to leverage their network and their community of sneakerheads and people who are huge fans of the sneaker and streetwear industry and really build out joint ventures with collaborations. And right now, the cafe has collaborated with Italian chocolatier Venchi, to offer a selection of hand drip coffee brews. And despite dining restrictions as part of Hong Kong's social distancing measures in the COVID era, the pandemic has not dampened Hypebeast and other individual roasters in opening new cafes amidst this turbulent time. If anything, COVID-19 has definitely affected how consumers interact with them physically, but Hypebeast treats their offline space as less of a retail space, but more of a gallery, a showcase for the brand. And a New York project is in the works. The project's currently on hold because of COVID, but where HBX will make its debut, its initial debut in the U.S. market with Hype Beans adjoined with their space. They want to continue on their storytelling journey and brand curation where someone can go and experience domestically in the US their fashion, their art, their coffee all in one space. Let's move on and take a look at what's going on over at Marc Jacobs. So for Marc Jacobs, their Runway Fall 2020 presentation, of course, everyone's fashion week looked very different this year over at Marc Jacobs in New York City at their Madison Avenue store, which is very much almost like an experiential playground for the brand, right? We have all these kinds of different presentations that we saw from them, including a film by Von Vance, which was built out for the campaign. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Very exciting and very dynamic. The mannequins that are featured in their new installation are posed in motion, which was an homage to the latest runway show's choreography by Carol Armitage. And the collection is now currently available at the Marc Jacobs Madison Avenue store. Here are some of the creative team, the visual team at Marc Jacobs putting that together. And obviously, this is a collection that is very joyful and full of movement. It's also a collection that, is very timely, given that all of the pieces, not all of them, but many of them, not only did they have complete collections, but they had matching, masks to go with them, some protective gear. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at what's going on over at Loewe. With Loewe, Jonathan Anderson has managed to do something that very few other fashion brands have done, which is to sell you on an idea, right? He's always referred to Loewe as a cultural brand, something that's much more about merchandise. And in his 7 years as the creative director, he has woven a care for craft, a care for the natural world, an embrace of culture and art into the product that the Loewe team has produced. When the brand launched their men's spring 2021 collection earlier this summer, they did it with something that they called a show in a box and a 24-hour live stream that was a part fashion, but more about people and conversations and ideas. So while some brands chose to do traditional runway presentations, other brands got very creative and unique with how they were presenting their runway collections. And I think this is a great example of that, right? A vinyl record player played the sounds of the brand's Spanish factory in creating this universe of Loeweisms, as they call it. It has some of the rare fashion companies, it has become a rare fashion company that can really sell you something with nothing. And by that, I mean something that the best Loewe, sometimes the best thing is a thought, right? An idea. And Loewe's Spring 2021 women's collection was presented not only, or not without a runway show, but with this 3-metered show on the wall box that was delivered to the homes of the brand's typical fashion show audience, right? Inside the box, which we can see, let's take a look at what that looked like. Here you can see the boxes that were received. Inside are were posters of the Spring 2021 collection, sheet music from Thomas Tallis's 1570 choral piece, a paper scroll of models wearing the new collection, a roll of wallpaper designed by Anthea Hamilton, a paintbrush, scissors, a canvas tool bag, and small scented ceramic. The folio details the images and the making of and the collaborations for the season. Now, for the show, there was video content of the creative director in conversation with Kaya Gerber, a performance of that choral piece by Kindness that featured Robin, Hannah Ben, and the debut of a film by Hilary Lloyd about the making of the box. And, I feel like we're in this moment where we have so much information right now, and ultimately, there's a lot of noise, right? And for the fashion industry to coexist in the landscape of health and politics and society, right? If we're not careful, fashion can really become irrelevant and get eaten up in the grand scheme of things, right? And this, of course, is not a new phenomenon. It has, of course, happened before, but fashion is in a bit of a paradox at the moment where it's trying to understand how to be able to communicate without also looking cold or detached. So in this very sort of strange Fashion Week season, Loewe is speaking very softly, but with a very loud message, right? It's about celebrating and honoring collaboration. And it has been possibly one of the biggest undertakings that they have ever done so far. The entire collection was designed in lockdown, and they really wanted to focus on the idea of what could be used with what was had. So a little bit of sustainability elements within that, right? The use of leathers and fabrics that were already in-house. Loewe has tried to do and do this in a comprehensive way that they could create this sort of time capsule, a time capsule in a box that you can keep and part that you can give away the rest, right? According to Jonathan Anderson, he felt that the collection merited this because of, through the use of the factory, right? The way that they were able to enable their craftspeople, their design team, their PR team, the marketing team, the entire company came together to produce something in one of the most complicated moments for our industry. When most of the industry was at a standstill, they managed to still keep the wheels turning at Loewe. And you can still sell a lot of clothing and a lot of bags and a lot of product, and you can get your message across without a proper runway show. Supreme, for instance, is $1 billion industry, right? They don't have runway shows, or rather, $1 billion business and brand, and they don't have runway shows. So to say that a runway show is going to save fashion is just inaccurate, right? And working this way, trying to synthesize his ideas, I think Jonathan Anderson has allowed himself to reconnect with design in a new way. And by existing in an offline object, like a box, something tangible, the Loewe box aims to capture your full attention, right? This is not an Instagram moment. This is not something that you are watching on your laptop or on Zoom or on your phone, right? There's no text alert interruptions. It's tangible, it's old school. And for Anderson, he's always had an affinity for the tactile, right? It goes hand in hand with celebrating the idea of craft and craftsmanship. And this is so important and important to document specifically during this time. This is the collection on view that you can see currently. And the box, according to Loewe, acts as this reliquary, right? As for the value of the physical object, it is increasing in these sort of increasing digital times. You can actually put a price on that, right? So people are saying, well, if I didn't get a box sent to me, right, how am I supposed to participate in this, right? Loewe's boxes, the menswear spring 2020 box, are being resold for up to $20,000 per box. So this lends itself to the circular fashion economy, right? It lends itself to sustainability and to being reshared and renewed and recycled. So a very, very bold move and a very interesting one that we are seeing from them. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of our projects our WindowsWear projects from some of our WindowsWear clients. If you are a member of WindowsWear, please make sure to always upload your project and make sure that your profiles are up to date so that we can share your fantastic work right here on our WindowsWear Lives every Monday at 4 p.m. So let's go ahead and take a look at Millennium Signs and Design Inc. This is something that they worked on for Saks Fifth Avenue. Up next, we have some work from Harlequin Design. From concept to installation, Harlequin worked very closely with Barber and with Selfridges to produce this circular and sustainably designed space. Green cast acrylics, uncoated stainless steel, eco board, and 100% VOC free paints were used throughout the process. The factory creates a space for you to re-wax and personalize your existing Barber products, giving them this new lease of life and the incentive to reuse and recycle for years to come. So fantastic project. Great work by Harlequin Design. And finally, let's see what else we have. Another project from Millennium Signs and Displays Inc., also from Saks Fifth Avenue. Or for Saks Fifth Avenue. And then over at Arsenal, New York, Arsenal has introduced Cole Haan's latest Zero Ground collection, urging people to hashtag write new rules for post-COVID work, life, and culture. Among some of the bold statements are failure is not an option, it's a necessity. Create your own opportunities by using what you have access to, and the future won't make itself. Arsenal New York joins the initiative with its fall 2020 Rock Center window displays, highlighting the artists who inspire the hashtag Write New Rules movement. Fantastic work from them. So again, if you are a WindowsWear member, please make sure that you are uploading those projects and detailing them, and that your profile is up to date so that you can be featured on WindowsWear Live on Mondays at 4 p.m. We will see you next week on Monday at 4. Have a fantastic afternoon, everyone.